Imagine you're 80 years old. For 60 years you've walked into your local bank, branch, talked to a person who knows your name, and handled your money with cash and checks. And then, one by one, all of that disappears. The branch closes. Checks are scrapped. Your pension, your aged care, your government services, all of it moves online, to an app on a phone you find genuinely difficult to use. For millions of older Australians, that's not a hypothetical. It's happening right now. And this week, the ABC reported on what it's actually doing to people, how the shift to digital is quietly stripping older Australians of their independence, and in some cases, their dignity. Today, we're talking about the digital divide. Let's start with a real story, because it captures this better than any statistic. A woman named Ms. Tro has become what she calls a digital navigator, helping her older sister access online government aged care services and banking. Her sister lives in Balingup, a small town in Western Australia, and the tipping point came from the bank. In Ms. Tro's words, when the bank said that they were no longer going to use checks, that was the final straw for her. Her sister had relied on checks her whole life. Suddenly they were gone. And here's the part that really lands. Ms. Tro said her sister's children are fantastic, but they don't live in Balingup, so it fell to Ms. Tro to manage her sister's banking and government services for her. And in her words, suddenly she had to give up her financial independence and trust me to do the right thing. Think about what that means. A grown woman who managed her own money her entire adult life now has to hand over control of her finances to a family member, not because she's lost the ability to make decisions, but because the system's changed and left her behind. That's not a small thing. That's a loss of independence, forced on someone by a change she never asked for. Patricia Sparrow, the chief executive of the Council on the Aging, the peak body for older Australians, put her finger on the emotional core of this. She said the divide between those who can comfortably access online services and those who cannot has isolated some older people. And then she said something that really stuck with me. She said it makes people feel that they can't cope. It makes people feel stupid. That word stupid is important, because these are not stupid people. They're people who ran households, held down jobs, raised families, managed their finances competently for decades. They are not less capable than they were. The world simply changed the rules on them, moved everything to a technology they were never taught, and then treated their struggle to keep up as a personal failing, rather than a design failure. That feeling of being made to feel stupid, of being left behind, of no longer being able to cope with basic everyday tasks, that's the human cost of the digital divide. And it's landing hardest on the people who have the least ability to change it. So let's look at what's actually driving this. Because it's a combination of things happening all at once. Bank branches are closing at a remarkable rate. Over recent years, hundreds of branches have shut across Australia. ATMs are vanishing too. The number of bank-linked ATMs has fallen dramatically, and bank post locations have declined as well. Back in 2016-17 there were nearly 14,000 ATMs. That number has collapsed. The bank's justification is straightforward, and on its own terms it's true. The Australian Banking Association says 99% of banking transactions now happen digitally. Their argument is customers have moved online, so we're investing where customers are. But here's the catch. That 99% figure hides the people it leaves behind. These closures tend to hit the people who don't know how, or can't access, online services. Disproportionately the elderly, people with disabilities, people in regional towns, and First Nations communities. For them, that branch isn't a convenience. It's essential. And it's not just banking. That's the part that makes this bigger than a story about ATMs. Government services have moved online too. Aged care services, Centrelink, Medicare, the tax office increasingly. The front door to all of these is a website or an app. If you can't navigate that, you can't easily access the services you're entitled to. Services designed to help older Australians are, ironically, becoming harder, for the least, tech-confident older Australians to reach. Then there's the disappearance of cash itself. As branches and ATMs close, simply getting hold of physical cash becomes harder. When Bendigo Bank shut its branch in Queenstown, Tasmania, residents turned to the local Australia Post outlet, and within weeks, that bank post service was struggling to keep up, and had even run out of cash twice. For people who budget in cash, who don't trust or can't use cards, this is a genuine crisis of daily life. The federal government has stepped in. A moratorium on regional branch closures through to mid-2027. A plan to mandate that businesses accept cash for essentials, like groceries and fuel, and a review of the whole cash distribution system. These are real responses, but advocates argue they're holding back the tide, not turning it. Opening hours and cash handling services keep being quietly cut, even where branches technically stay open. Now, let's be fair, because there's a genuine other side to this. Digital banking is genuinely better for most people, most of the time. It's convenient, it's fast, it's available 24 hours a day, and it's free. Younger Australians, and plenty of older ones too, overwhelmingly prefer it. Mobile wallet usage has grown more than 20-fold since 2019. Nobody is seriously arguing we should stop the digital shift and force everyone back to queuing at a branch on a Thursday. And running physical branches is genuinely expensive. Banks have collectively saved around $1 billion a year through branch closures. Keeping thousands of barely used branches open is hard to justify commercially, especially when online-only banks that carry none of those costs can offer better rates. So the tension is real. The digital shift delivers genuine benefits to the large majority, but it imposes genuine harm on a vulnerable minority. And the question at the heart of this is, who is responsible for that minority? Is it acceptable for a commercial bank to optimize for the 99% and leave the 1% to be looked after by their families, their neighbors, and retirement village staff? Or is access to banking and government services a basic right that should be guaranteed for everyone, regardless of how tech-savvy they are? That question, who picks up the slack, has a quiet answer that's worth naming. Right now, the answer is family, neighbors, and community. Ms. Tro became her sister's digital navigator. Across the country, adult children manage their parents' online banking, and retirement village staff help residents access government portals. The responsibility for bridging this gap has fallen, informally and unpaid, onto the people around older Australians. For those who have that support, it works sort of, though, as Ms. Tro's story shows, at the cost of the older person's independence. But what about those who don't have a Ms. Tro? The older Australians with no nearby family, no tech-confident neighbor, no one to hand things over to. They're the ones truly at risk of being cut off from their own money and from the services they're entitled to. This is why advocates argue that face-to-face services cannot simply be replaced by online banking, especially for communities who are digitally excluded. The convenience for the many doesn't erase the necessity for the few. So where does this leave us? The digital shift isn't going to reverse, and honestly it shouldn't. For most people it's a genuine improvement, but a society is often judged by how it treats those who can't keep up with its pace of change. And right now, Australia is asking some of its oldest and most vulnerable citizens to either learn technology they find genuinely difficult or surrender their independence to someone else. There are middle paths, guaranteeing a minimum of in-person banking and cash access as an essential service, funding Australia Post to be a genuine banking alternative in towns that lost their branches, digital literacy programs that meet older people where they are, keeping checks and cash as options for those who need them. None of these stop progress. They just make sure progress doesn't leave people behind. The goal shouldn't be to force every 80-year-old to become an app expert. It should be to make sure someone who has managed their own life for 6 decades can keep doing so with dignity and without being made to feel, in Patricia Sparrow's words, that they can't cope or that they're stupid. They're not. We just built a world that forgot to bring them along. Do you have an older parent, grandparent, or neighbor who's struggling with all of this? Have you become the digital navigator in your family? Or are you an older Australian feeling left behind by it yourself? I'd genuinely love to hear your experience in the comments, because this is one of those issues that touches almost every family, and it doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Like and subscribe for more Australian news explained simply. See you next time.